Doctor, I'm going to ask you the question that Sri Lankans, average Sri Lankans are having right now, and they're coming out in the street, putting their lives at risk and shouting out, speaking out for themselves because of this. They don't have to eat. They don't have food to eat. People keep on protesting almost every day. Government has given them 5,000. They've given them certain concessions, concessionary hampers. However, this really doesn't seem to be enough. Do you think that enough has been done? But what more can really be done to help these people?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. In fact, we had a meeting with Colombo District Coordinating Committee Chairman along with Mayor Mrs. Rosie Sennaika, the CMC doctors, the government agent, everyone. And we were really analyzing what the situation really is. So now what's happening is they are doing about 1,000 tests in the city limits. And as of the 23rd, the latest available data we had as of yesterday, of the 999 tests done, they found 247 positive cases, so which is about 24-25%. Now all these people are then quarantined and are taken to facilities, not necessarily the hospital, but they are kept by themselves. And the entire area then is locked down. So when it is locked down, people obviously can't go to work, and they are given 5,000 rupees per family. Those who are in quarantine are given 10,000 rupees per family. Actually, they are given a
hamper.
Groceries.
Right.
Now the issue is, it's been almost a month since the lockdown, and they've only been given this 5,000 once. So you can't live with 5,000 a month when you have 4 or 5 people in your family. It's kind of ridiculous to
and to
even
add
expect.
to that, doctor, in these areas, especially in the housing schemes, some households have more than one family, increasing to 8, maybe 12 people per family. And also, just to put this in context, the World Bank has categorized any family living under any person living under $1.9 per day to be living in extreme poverty. According to the calculations, if you consider 4 people in a family, 5,000 rupees per month, this roughly comes to about $0.9 per person per day. So is the government asking people to live in extreme poverty for months on end? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's called the poverty line, you see these definitions differ. World Bank has one. There's multi-sector. Poverty can be measured in different ways. Amartya Sen said poverty is the lack of access, to education, to health, good job, and so on.
Right.
But to make it easy, we go with this definition of the amount of money one needs to spend to purchase groceries or food to take in 2,030 kilocalories a day.
Right.
Now that works out to about 5,500 rupees a month per person.
5,000 rupees per person?
Per person, 5,500.
Not per family?
Not per family. So this statistic is updated every month by the Department of Census and Statistics. So this whole 20,000 amount that people laughed at when Mr. Saji Premadasa spoke of it at the time was actually calculated based on the DCS figure. So what it means is you need to have a minimum of 20,000 to survive. So not to be below the poverty line, right? So suppose you have lost your job completely, right? Then it is a responsibility of the government to ensure that 20,000 rupees comes to your home so that you can survive a month. Suppose you lost 50% of your income, then the government can do with 10,000. Suppose you lost 25% of your income, then it is 5,000. So there is no one size fits all. I mean, the government must be able to analyze the situation and be able to put the different people in different groups and be able to provide them with what is necessary.
Well, sometimes it's easier said than really being done. And in this case, we're currently speaking of the ever-mounting debt burden in Sri Lanka. According to the proposal that you just made, does the government have enough funds? Because at the end of the day, Parliament is the body that is responsible for the finances of the country. And as a parliamentarian, do you believe that Sri Lanka has enough funds to fund this program, as you said?
I mean, if the government can put in $150 million into loss-making Sri Lankan Airlines this year alone, that shows that they have enough money. If the government can allocate money to recarpet sometimes 100,000 kilometers of road, then obviously they have money, right? If the government can spend on all these things that politicians, for whatever reason, would like to
go and declare open,
perhaps, then why is there no money for the people? You see, I said that this budget was written by somebody in a parallel universe, because everyone in this universe realizes that the biggest issue facing people in any country, particularly not so rich countries, is what you just explained, that people are finding it extremely difficult to make ends meet, right? So that is why the budget was expected to bring in some sort of stimulus package, some sort of responsible expenditure so that people can survive. Now the question is, do we have the money? No, we don't have the money, right? So then the question is, then what are you talking about? It is reprioritizing. You see, we have to reprioritize. Now just today, there is a lot of talk with G20 saying that many countries are spending more on interest payments on their loans than the amount they spend on healthcare during this pandemic.
Right.
And they've sort of listed out 10 countries that has got the biggest difference, meaning the amount of debt payment in dollars and the amount of healthcare expenditure. And Sri Lanka is at number 2 from bottom, which goes to show that our priorities are all need to be reevaluated. So we understand that the government in power right now has to meet the obligations that this government and previous governments, not just the previous one, the one before, and so on and so forth, have got ourselves into in terms of ensuring that we have money to meet our debt obligations, right? So that is why 70 odd countries have gone and got what is called rapid financing agreements, rapid credit facilities, etc. from the IMF, so that they can get what I have argued here, reprofile their debt, meaning they get a window like a moratorium, so that that money then can be used for a priority expenditure.
The State Minister Cabral said that this is a no can do.
Oh, I mean, come on. He's not. He has to be responsible not just for his political party, but for this country. If he says no, cannot do, let us see what is going to happen. I challenge him and challenge the government that they have no choice but to engage in serious discussions with the IMF to ensure that we get some sort of moratorium, some sort of leeway, some sort of breathing space in order to give our people the amount of money that they need
to live,
right? See, now already, like I said, multiple countries have been able to get these moratoria, which is really a delayed payment of something like 36 months.
Right.
Now the condition is the money that you save by not paying interest has to be spent on health and social care activities, so that people are looked after during this pandemic. Now the problem that we seem to be having is we are not willing to engage with the IMF. So unless we engage with the IMF, this what is called debt service suspension initiative cannot come into play.
But of course, judging by the tone of the State Minister on the day he made the speech in Parliament, it seems as if there is no changing the government's mind on this matter. Is there any alternative that you can propose, at least, for the government to take a different path to maybe restructure the debt that we have, according to what you said?
Yeah, I mean, we've been having a healthy debate, Mr. Cabral and myself, in Parliament on this issue. And yes, he is very steadfast, saying that no, we don't need to go anywhere. We can manage our own affairs. We don't need advice of the IMF or anyone else, that we can do this. I mean, as a citizen of this country, more than my official hat I'm wearing right now as an opposition MP, I'm concerned, right, as a citizen. If people cannot be looked after, there could be social unrest, and we, like you pointed out at the beginning, people are coming out on the streets, and it is not instigated by anyone. It's just people are just finding it tough. I mean, people in middle class people are feeling it. People who I know are feeling it. There are people who've been running small businesses who have got absolutely no revenue, right? How are they making ends meet? It's not easy. Look at the number of credit card defaults in the last month, right?
Look at the number of jewelry that has been pawned.
Look at the number of items of jewelry that has been pawned. One must feel lucky if your employer is actually giving you a salary. Sometimes it may have been slashed a bit, but they are looking after you, right? So you must feel fortunate to work for a company that you still have a job. I'm telling you seriously, right? Because some people have just say they have let people go, wholesale, and sort of absolve themselves of any responsibility. But go beyond that. Look at the people who are self-employed, poor laborers. Those guys are in dire straits. So what I'm saying is, come on, leave your pride aside. It is nothing about being ashamed or anything like that. If the world is going through a tough time, it is not only us. We need to engage in discussions with our creditors to be able to reprofile our debt, so that we get some time to breathe, and that money can then be used for what I call a stimulus, so that you can give a shot in the arm to small scale, medium scale entrepreneurs, self-employed people, and get them to be able to fend for themselves.
We were speaking about the priorities of the government in this budget. We will get into an in-depth discussion after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Newsline.
Newsfirst, Newsline.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline. We're in discussion with Dr. Harsha De Silva, parliamentarian, of course, regarding the budget for the year 2021 and how this will affect Sri Lankans, of course, throughout the course of next year, and also in the short term, like right now. Doctor, we were speaking about the priorities of the government in this budget. What do you think the government has prioritized in this budget?
That's a tough question to answer, because what they said is they are prioritizing sort of the family, right? They said the rural, this is people centric. That's what they said. They said Gama Samaka Sangwadyak, and what they heard, and they want to help the people. So helping the people in this time of pandemic is really to give them a helping hand, which we don't see. You see, I appreciate what they are saying. Give them a fishing rod, not a fish. They didn't say it. I'm saying it, but that's
the concept.
Yeah, that's the concept. So, create a job. Give him a livelihood rather than just give money. I 100% agree with that. But these jobs that are being created is in the public sector, 150,000 new jobs. Right now, already you see the salary bill and add to that the pension takes about 74 cents out of every rupee the government makes. You see, that's a large amount of money. So add to that, make it 82 or 83 cents of every rupee the government makes. How much more can you expand the public sector and give people jobs based on a letter by an MP? And each MP, I understand, has been given a quota of 600 jobs. 600 jobs. You see, this earlier they had the military do some sort of interview and pick young people for these jobs. But now what I understand is that has been discarded, that list has been discarded, and it is basically on the recommendation of the port to a MP that you get a job. I mean, this is politicization like we have never seen before, right? And that is just a political project. It's a political project, and these guys are going to be given jobs in their own home turf. So for every Grama Sevaka division, you are going to add another political operator, appointee to carry out the election work. This is a typical BR operation.
But also, Doctor, there was much concern raised when the age for retirement was increased to 60 years. Now, of course, on the face of it, one could say, well, you can work for longer. But of course, there is a flip side to it. The age in which you can withdraw from your EPF also increases. Can this be justified in the current context? And also doing it so suddenly, is this really acceptable practice?
You see, there are two sides to it. I think when the retirement age was set at 55, I mean, people in this country didn't live much longer after 55. But of course, now people live much longer, 25, 30 years after 55. So therefore, I think it is possible to work till 60. That's really not the issue. The issue is the second point. Why so suddenly? And does it mean that you are forced to wait till you are 60 to withdraw your EPF money? People have plans for their EPF money. Get your daughter in marriage, or pay for your the remaining mortgage, or what have you, right? Assuming that you've been lucky enough to start building a house at some point before you are 55. So then, what are you going to do with the money that is getting saved from the government's point of view, right? Suddenly, you don't have to give this money to people who otherwise should have claimed at age of 55. So here you have a pot of money left. You see, that's the flip side. What are you going to do with this pot of money, right? Are you going to invest it in government securities? I even heard, sorry?
Stock market?
That's the thing. I even heard that. Right? I mean, you have to look at the machinations right now in the market. Who is playing the market? How are these prices going up? Is EPF, slowly working at it? The insurance company, Sri Lanka insurance company, I understand, is working hand in glove with certain notorious investors. Last time we saw what happened to EPF money when it was quote unquote invested in the stock market, so that 3-4 people profited in the billions, and it is all written about and published. The reports are available as to the number of billions of losses made by the EPF. You see, the EPF has been misused, abused by successive governments. Right? When Ilangaratne brought the EPF Act, I read the speech, and he very categorically said, you see, this is for the people, right? This is people's hardworking individuals' savings, right? And one must be able to provide, or the government has to provide a minimum return, which he said was 2.5% at the time when treasury bill rates were 1%. You see, but what has subsequently happened is that the government borrows the entirety of the EPF for its various needs, expenses. And now, you see, what is important now is the cabinet has basically decreed an interest rate, above which government entities cannot bid. So it is artificially brought down. So interest rates have been artificially brought down by decree, cabinet decree. And I'm saying it with responsibility. It's been published in the central bank reports as well. So therefore, that is how they are going to control the interest expense on the government's debt. Now, what does it in turn mean to for you and for me, who as a private sector employee before I joined public sector, has an EPF account? What is the return that I am getting? That return is obviously going to go down. And when the interest rate structure is artificially brought down, banks also give a very reduced interest rate on the deposits. People rely on interest that they get every month to make ends meet, buy their medication, buy food, do the groceries, but they are unable to do that. So from every side, people are getting squeezed, right? So that is the reality, and one has to be creative, and one has to be innovative. One has to be able to identify and understand the real problems people are facing to be able to provide solutions. Shouting in parliament or issuing press releases ain't going to do it.
Doctor, we're in the final few minutes of our show, of course. As far as the budget for the year 2021 goes, is there any way that amendments could be brought in and this could be maybe fixed to be more suited for this current situation the country is in?
Well, I mean, amendments can always be brought in, but even if you go with the most optimistic revenue numbers for 2020, which is 1,588 billion, next year is 2,029 billion collection, right, revenue, which means a 28% increase in collections in taxes that has to be paid by the people now, right? So income taxes are not going up.
No, the government has widened the tax net.
Well, I mean, the government has
proposal.
No, the government has, when actually they reduce the VAT, they even increase the threshold, by many times over. So that means the net has actually shrunk in terms of collection of VAT, right? It is during Mangala Samaravira's time that a whole bunch of new tax files were opened and people started paying.
Well, when I said the tax net has been expanded, meaning the introduction of general taxes and indirect taxes has brought the general public into this tax net.
Well, actually not, because the tax revenue has dropped. It is perhaps one of the lowest in the world as we speak at end of 2020. we probably will not even make 9% of GDP in terms of taxes. I mean, we are a country that used to bring in 22% in tax revenue, not too far back, you know, early 2000s, right? And if you don't bring in that kind of revenue into the government, how are you going to pay people's salaries of all these people who you hire? How are we going to give free health? How are we going to give free education? How are we going to be subsidized bus fares? How are we going to, you know, write checks for Sri Lankan Airlines for $150 million for this coming year, $500 million for the next 3 years? How are we going to keep all these, you know, fancy subsidies running for the rich people?
Doctor, the statements that you made reminded me of one famous statement that actually went viral that you made at a media briefing. You said, "Diyaw kiyanawa kohing dennada."
Yes.
So on that note, we will say a bid adieu to all our viewers out there. Thank you very much for tuning into Newsline, and of course, thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us on our show despite your busy schedule. We will, of course, see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, take care and God bless.